Hi, I'm Nadine Whitehead, and welcome to my life of baking. I am here this morning working on some peach cobbler. I have home canned peaches, but I just wanted to tell you a little bit about how you can make this, because the peaches can be in just about any form to make a peach cobbler. This recipe has instructions for at least 3 different ways. So the first one is with fresh peaches, and you can use about 5 fresh peaches, and they would be peeled and cored, and you would need a total of about 4 cups, and you would mix that with 3/4 cup of granulated sugar and about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of cinnamon, and then you would cook them till they were tender in a saucepan, and that would bring the juices out, and they would be just wonderful to put in this peach cobbler. The second way is with home canned peaches, but home canned peaches can come with really sweet peaches, or it can come with peaches with just a little sugar. The way I can my peaches, I use mostly peach juice, and then the very top, if there's some gap, I add a very light sugar syrup. So with my home canned peaches, I will treat them the same way as I would the fresh peaches and cook them a little bit with some extra added sugar and cinnamon and salt. The ones that have heavy syrup, you would treat the same way if you got canned peaches from the store, because the canned peaches from the store are typically in a heavy syrup, and they are ready to use in this peach cobbler. So I'm going to get started, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my canned peaches that were canned out of my garden, or off of my trees out in my yard, not in my garden, but we're gonna pop that lid off, and I'm gonna dump them into the saucepan. Maybe if they'll come out. There they come. And I am going to add 3/4 cup of granulated sugar and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of cinnamon. All right, I'm going to give that a good stir and kind of get that blended together. And see, that just works right in really quick. And I'm going to set that over on my stove on about medium to, in between medium and medium high heat, just to get that sugar all melted and get that cooking. So I'll set it over here. Okay, and we'll check that in a couple minutes and see if we've got it boiling yet. So the next thing we want to do is we're going to prepare our pan, and I'm using a 9x9 pan. You can use a 9x13, or I don't know if an 8x8 would be quite big enough, but it works really good in a 9x9 pan. To get our pan ready, before we make our batter, we want to put in 6 tablespoons of butter, and you can use butter or margarine, whichever is your preference. Off there. So I'm going to cut up 6 tablespoons and plop it in the pan. Getting them off there is sticking to the knife there. All right, and I'll save that butter for something else. And I'm just going to take this pan with the butter in it, and we're going to set it in the oven so that butter melts in the bottom. Okay, so for the next part of this recipe is making the batter. And no matter which way you're using your peaches, you're going to use the same batter for your cobbler. So the first thing I do, I'm going to get some flour. And again, we're just going to measure into the cup and scrape it off so it doesn't get too much flour, like when you scoop with your cup. So there we go. And to that, we're gonna add a cup of sugar. I go a little less. I do probably just about a 3/4 cup because I don't like it too sweet. We do 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and the baking powder will help that cake rise in your peach cobbler. And we're gonna put a teaspoon of cinnamon. And we're gonna put in some salt. It's just a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And we're gonna put in 3/4 cup of milk. And then we're just gonna stir that up. And you could probably use a rotary mixer with this if you wanted to. I like to just stir it, then I can kind of see how it's coming along. Oh goodness, it's getting thicker, so I think it's blending together well. I can smell that cinnamon in there. That just smells so good this morning. I'm so glad that I have peach trees in my yard so I can can peaches, and we have them all year round. So this is a pretty easy recipe to make, and it's something you can make on the fly somewhat so that if you need a dessert, you can make it. Most of the other ingredients we have in the house anyway, so it all works out pretty well. I'll be right back. I'm gonna see if my butter is melted. There we go. So I have the butter all melted. And that's just gonna sit here for a minute. And I'm gonna check on my peaches. We're gonna let those peaches cook just a little bit more. When they are ready, we'll put this all together. Okay, my peaches are about ready to go. So the first thing I've got to do before I pull them off the stove is take that batter that I just made, and this is for the cake part of the peach cobbler. And I pulled my pan out of the oven with its melted butter. Make sure that's pretty even across there. And I'm gonna just pour this batter. This is just one of our favorite recipes in the summer. One of my fondest memories about peach cobbler kind of goes around a time that wasn't so happy, because it was when I lost my dad. And my uncle was there from Georgia, and we went downstairs to start cleaning out some of the canned goods and seeing what my dad had left in the basement. And there was about 5 jars of peaches on the shelf, and at the same time my uncle and I said, "Peach cobbler!" We went up to the funeral home, and while we were gone, my uncle made the biggest pan of peach cobbler that I ever saw. And we had peach cobbler for several days, but it was just a wonderful treat. So I'm gonna put this in the sink and grab my peaches. The peaches are all that sugar got melted. It just looks so good, and they smell just wonderful. And we're gonna pour this right over this batter that we put in the pan. And that fills that pan right up full. Not quite to the top, but it's ready to go in the oven. Grab that and go over here. Now that has to cook for about 40 minutes. Okay, I had a peach cobbler that I took out of the oven when I put the other one in, and it's already baked. So since it takes about 40 minutes for that other one to bake, we're gonna start off with this one. And we are going to get a piece of peach cobbler out of there. You should be able to get about 9 servings out of your peach cobbler. So we'll scoop that out of there and get the peaches that I missed. And what's peach cobbler without ice cream? It's nice and warm, so that ice cream will be so good on top of it. There we go. And that is just a wonderful piece of peach cobbler with some vanilla bean ice cream on top. I'm gonna grab a spoon. I need to get a bite of that. Boy, that is so good. This is just a wonderful dessert for any time of the year. If you have canned peaches, you can make it in a hurry. And if does anybody else notice what's different about this pan? When we put this all together, the batter's in the bottom. When we take it out of the oven, we have cake on top of the peaches. It's kind of a fun dessert and something the kids would like too. I'm Nadine Whitehead, and I want to thank you for joining me on My Life of Baking. I sure hope you'll try this peach cobbler, and we'll see you again very soon.